Dr. Bensong risked everything when he used the quantum leap accelerator to travel back in time. Now our team's working to find out why. As he leaps between bodies with no memory of who he is, he still has one hope. That his next leap takes him back.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about the 11th episode of the Quantum Leap revival, Leap, Die, Repeat. The episode's description reads as follows. In 1962, Ben finds himself caught in a time loop and trying to stop a nuclear reactor explosion. The episode was directed by Pamela Romanowski, and the episode was written by Margarita Matthews. This is her second written by credit, though she has served as story editor on 11 episodes of this season, which, by the way, is all of them. She was last responsible for writing O Ye of Little Faith, which I think might actually be my favorite episode of this season thus far. Before going any further, I will tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, please go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you are on one of the platforms that this podcast is now listenable to, please hit me up with a follow. You can also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to my channel. This week's shout out goes to my co-host Stacie, who missed the last episode. I mean, she participated because she gave me a little bit audio recording of her thoughts, but she was sick with corona during the course of that episode, so there was no back and forth. But she's back, so shout out to my co-host. I'm pretty sure that all three of our listeners missed you.
Yay!
Both you and me were excited for this week's episode. It had a unique sci-fi premise, which is something that the original show never really did. It never really got into the sci-fi elements. So, and I wholeheartedly endorse this series continuing to play with its premise like that. The sci-fi concept in question is that of a time loop, which we've seen most notably in the movie Groundhog Day. That wasn't really a science fiction film. It was more like a fantasy romance film. But nevertheless, it used that concept. There's also some episodes of science fiction, like from Star Trek. Star Trek had an episode in the 5th season called Cause and Effect, which I'm pretty sure you saw. Adam made you watch that episode.
Adam made me watch the whole series, but I couldn't speak to any particular episode like that.
You would remember it.
I didn't internalize the show quite that much.
You would remember it. It's the episode where the Enterprise blows up within the first 30 seconds of the episode. But the another series that did that was also the X-Files, where Mulder and Scully kept dying in a bank robbery explosion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concept that's been done a lot, in different media.
Those are the episodes or the movies that I can recall. Actually, there was a recent movie that was on Amazon Prime, a map of your favorite things or the perfect things. I forgot what the name of the movie was.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes, I thought that was kind of a cute movie that also utilized that concept. We were also excited because Robert Picardo was guest starring in this episode. I know him from Star Trek Voyager. Mm-hmm. He was the doctor on that series. He also appeared in the movie Gremlins 2, as well as another Joe Dante movie, Explorers, which were both movies that I saw when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. And he was also
in Stargate.
He was in he appeared as the same character in 3 different Stargate series. And it's funny because that character's last name was also Woolsey.
I also
so
noted
this was
that.
Definitely a direct nod to that.
I was wondering, is that a homage?
Yeah, I didn't see any direct context that would lead us to believe these two characters are supposed to be related or anything like that.
I mean, it would be kind of funny. It's feasible that they could be related.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for a mention of like a grandchild.
Right, right.
We're in 62 here, so we're 30-year time difference. But
yeah, when does the Stargate universe take place?
In the present day, which would have been the 90s.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was meant to take place in the future.
Okay, well, I mean, so it's feasible that the characters could be related.
Right, but yeah, I didn't see any, there was no mention of any relatives of Dr. Edwin Woolsey.
But it definitely was intentional. There's
absolutely.
There's no way that was a coincidence. So your thoughts on this week's episode?
I really enjoyed it. I was, looking very, very forward to this episode. And it delivered. I'll admit I only had a chance to watch it once. I meant to watch it again this morning, without taking notes, because this was a difficult one to take notes for, just because there's so much going on. Not even that there's so much going on, but just like, it was hard to take notes on. It was more like, write down every detail on a separate page. But I meant to watch it again, but it didn't happen. And I will go back and do that because it was an enjoyable episode. Thematically, I think it was a great story. It was definitely something different than we've seen in the Quantum Leap universe before. And I like that. I think the story in and of itself was a little more simplistic than I expected it to be. But you got to think 5 leaps, we only had a few minutes with each one of them. It wasn't going to get too crazy. If this was a full-length movie, there would have been more time to get in depth with the story. But
now, initially when I was watching the episode, I actually wasn't feeling it at the beginning. I thought the pacing was like way off, like almost back to the first episode of really rushing things, specifically after the credits, like where things were just like going super fast. But as the episode went along, I kind of got used to it, and it started to slow down a little bit. But yeah, I was having some issues with it. There's some things in this episode that don't make sense. But overall, it was an enjoyable episode. Before
we get into the episode itself, there was one other shout out I wanted to
I saw this coming.
Mention. Yeah. This week, Annie Wershing passed away. She is an actress who she starred in Timeless, which is a show that you've all heard me talking about a lot. She was also in the Star Trek universe.
Yes, she was actually in an episode of the, I think it was Enterprise, I think that she appeared in. But she was also recently in Star Trek Picard as the Borg Queen in season 2 of that series.
And she's, been in tons of other things. And it was very sad news. She's only 45 years old. She has 3 young children.
Way too young.
Yeah.
Way too young.
She was actually pregnant with one of her sons during the Save Timeless campaign, during which she was very active with the fans. She was meeting up with fans at conventions. She was tweeting right along with us for Save Timeless. So it was very sad news. And there is actually a GoFundMe campaign going on to raise money for her children. So I will make sure we get a link to that down in the comments of this video if anybody's interested in checking that out.
All right. So Ben leaps in, and he's wearing a military outfit. I believe he was a general.
He was Colonel Jack Parker.
Colonel Jack Parker. They are in an elevator with a bunch of different characters. All these characters are relevant throughout the episode. There's the scientist, Eugene. Woosley, that's the Robert Picardo character. I'm not sure what he was.
He's like the lead scientist.
He's the lead scientist?
Yeah. So
he seemed like more like a tour guide.
Yeah, he's like in charge of the project.
Gotcha.
And Eugene works under him.
There's also a janitor in the elevator, along with the reporter. Woosley, who's played once again by Picardo, is leading the tour and complains, as he often will, about being behind schedule. Though this time it seems like he gets more and more agitated as the episode goes along about being behind that schedule. It's really interesting. Because at first he's kind of lighthearted about it, but as the episode goes along, it's like, we're behind schedule.
I found it fun to note some little changes we saw in different characters and really be like, is the fact that Ben is somebody else and this other person's here really changing like how everybody's interacting with each other?
I mean, I would imagine it. So I'm also kind of wondering if there was like a subconscious memory for what had already transpired.
Could have been.
That was actually in the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Cause and Effect. There was people who retained, not necessarily memories, but there was a subconscious uneasy feeling of having repeated events. And I'm kind of wondering if that was what was going on here, because I did note some of the attitude changes in the characters as we progressed.
Interesting.
Let's see. They're led to a nuclear reactor. The janitor comments that it looks like something out of a science fiction novel.
And the reporter, Mallory, I did note, she says, far out. That was her reaction. And I was curious if that was already a coined phrase in 1962, but I did not look it up. I know it's 60s, but...
Yeah, 60s, hippie era, so it makes sense. We could have looked into that, but...
It was in my notes, and I didn't get back to it. And then the clock turned 10:01. They showed us the clock, which is interesting because I thought they were going to keep showing us the clock the whole episode, and I don't think they really did.
Right, and that is something that prior television or movies that were similarly explored time loops made a mention of repeatedly is the time. That was especially evident in the movie Groundhog Day, which kept flipping back to the same time.
Actually, you know, this showing us that that clock click 10:01 might actually have been a direct reference. Now that you say that.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because I mean, we do reference Groundhog Day in this episode specifically.
Yes.
So yeah, actually showing us that 10:01 was probably meant as a nod to that Groundhog Day clock. Now that you say that.
Let's see. Oh yeah, so Woosley asks him, "Hey, why are you even here?" to the janitor, and that's a good question. This janitor seems to have way more access than he should throughout the episode.
Right.
I was
like they're concerned, they're questioning why he's there, but they're also not concerned that he's there. He has clearance.
Right.
I mean, he does clean this room. He's about to go clean that soda spill on the floor for the first time.
And this little reference made me think that he was going to end up being the villain of the episode.
Well, they definitely led us to think that for a while, right? Especially when it got down to he was the last host.
All right, so they end up in the control room. Woosley sidesteps the soda can that you just alluded to, that was dropped on the ground by some inconsiderate jackass. I mean, seriously, you drop a soda can and you just leave it there?
They had Mo to go clean it up.
Okay, fine. You get the janitor to clean up the spill, but you don't pick up the can?
I mean, maybe before getting in the elevator, he was called to pick it up, and that's why he's there.
Oh, maybe that makes sense. Okay, so the reactor is experimental. It's probably the first of its kind. And as Woosley talks to the reporters, Ben starts geeking out because he's a scientist and this is his element. This is
perfect for him, right?
Right.
And we're told that the point of the reactor is to make recycled nuclear fuel, and sustainable energy source.
Now, is that still something that goes on today with nuclear power, or?
I have no idea how nuclear power works.
Yeah, I'm admit to being a little, I'm not really familiar with nuclear power, how it works, or even the history of nuclear power.
If any of this has any base in anything that's ever happened in this country, I have no idea. Ben was very excited about it. Yeah.
Yes, and as well he should be. We see the janitor cleaning up the soda can. The TV is turned on where we see JFK speaking. Addison arrives and actually gives the date, September 12th, 1962, which I know is something that made you happy.
It makes me happy when they give us the date because they're supposed to give us the date. That's just part of the format.
And the speech JFK is giving is about going to the moon and the promise of technology, but we also hear him at one point say the part where he's not sure if the technology will be used for good or for ill, and that very much fits into the theme of this episode.
And
overall.
That's something I love, is this series often gives us these historical television broadcasts. Like, this is more episodes than not we've seen TV broadcasts of actual historical footage, and I really like that element. They did it in the original series a couple of times, but they seem to be playing on that a lot in this, and I like that they do that, really ground us in the history of where we are. Absolutely.
I think that's a very fitting way to go about doing that in this series. Addison discovers that the reactor is shut down after the demonstration. Well, that's certainly one way to put it. Okay. That's a problem I had with this episode. In a little bit, there's going to be an explosion. This is a nuclear explosion?
Well, is it though?
I'm not sure. That's my question.
It's not. They just thought it was.
Right.
Right?
But an explosion at a nuclear power plant would make the news.
It was covered up. That's the whole point.
How would you cover that up, though? An explosion like that?
I mean, it's a secret government project.
Okay.
Although, it can't be too secret because they do have a reporter there who's about to make a story about it.
Right. And somebody would question the whereabouts of this reporter, for sure. I don't know if they mentioned that she was one of those mysterious deaths.
Yes, they covered all five of them.
They did, okay.
Yeah.
I missed that part.
But yeah, as far as the news records go, the history is that it was shut down and funding was dropped unexpectedly, and that was the end of it.
Addison can't find any more information on this because she's having a hard time with the net or something like that.
Yeah, she said, I can't find anything on the internet.
So she has to go and talk to Jen.
She said, I have to talk to Jen. Now, are we forgetting here that, Ziggy exists?
Right, there's
Ziggy does more than just search the internet. And why is it you have to talk to Jen, your security person, to get records?
It seems like Ian would be a more appropriate person to talk to.
Yeah, talk to Ian, talk to Ziggy. Why are you going to Jen for help?
Yeah, I didn't understand that a little bit. There's a scientist, Eugene, who asks Ben, how do uranium atoms say goodbye? they got a split, and I gotta appreciate the show for giving me
A dad joke?
A dad joke, which, oh, by the way, I used. That'll drop at 5 o'clock today. Thank you, Quantum Leap. I actually had 3 dad jokes today, so I appreciate the show. Thank you. That wasn't the only dad joke in the show, but that's the only one that I specifically remember.
And Ben appreciated the joke.
He did after he finally got it.
It took him a minute.
Yeah, at first he was really just confused. And if you have to explain the joke, it's not funny.
Yes. I tell Adam that all the time.
Yes. Well, in Adam's case, he really has to explain most of his humor. Anyway, not to make fun of Adam, let's move on from that. Ben says he'll tell his fiancée later. Yeah. And he never gets to do that.
And it's funny because nobody in the room questions that Colonel Jack Parker keeps talking about a fiancé.
Yeah, he does that in like a lot of episodes where he refers to his fiancée.
Right.
And he's got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
That was an issue I had. He's continuously brings up a fiancé that he doesn't know for a fact that the person he's left into has.
Right.
And he forgets that there's people around him that actually know who he is.
Right.
Or at least his host.
And I doubt that this, older gentleman has a fiancé.
I mean, you never know.
It's not impossible, but the odds are that it's a no.
All right, so back at the project, Jen discovers that all the people involved in the nuclear reactor project all die.
Yeah.
Within days of each other.
Right. The first that she found was that Woolsey dies today of a heart attack, and then quickly finds out the other 4 people also all died. One person died of a car accident. One, it just said like mysterious, like there was like no known, like just medical whatever. The reporter, they were talking about her sister and the not being able to give the eulogy because she was so upset. Like, they brought up all these news articles in their obituaries. And it does seem kind of funny that nobody would have ever pieced together that all these people died within such short order of each other.
Yeah, you would think somebody would look
you
into
gotta
that.
imagine it wasn't just those 5 people. All the people in this building would have died. Like, we saw lots of other military police throughout the episode, other characters. They all would have died.
Yeah, a nuclear reactor project is not something that's going to be small. That's
I imagine we're deep underground, like Project Quantum Leap is. So there would be some containment, but definitely anybody involved in the project would die. Like, there's probably a lot of people around, not just these people we've actually seen.
Right. So yeah, they find this suspicious. Addison realizes that she has to go to talk to Ben with urgency.
Yeah, she realizes it's cover-up. Something really bad is about to happen.
In the past, we're getting ready for the demonstration. The scientist's pen doesn't work, which is more significant than it initially seems. Ben discovers a letter in his pocket, but isn't able to read it because Woosley tells him that he's not going to want to miss this. And he's probably not going to miss it, for sure.
We also got the line right here. Woolsey was like, yeah, this is so great. By the year 2000, we're going to have flying cars.
You know what? Screw the flying cars. I still want my damn hoverboard.
And Ben was just like, well, don't know about that.
Yeah, the future is going to be way more disappointing than you think, Woosley. I'm sorry.
But he might live to see it now at the end of this episode.
That's true. That's true. There is that. The countdown begins. It reaches 0. They all clap happily. Ben notices a bunch of flashing red lights. And Woosley asks, why is the coolant draining? An alarm sounds, and that's never a good sign.
Yep. And Addison, just in time's like, Ben!
Just in time to see Ben die in a horrible explosion.
Our first big boom.
So everybody dies. Back at the project, they all notice that Ben is flatlined. Okay, this is where the pacing of the episode kind of starts getting to be a little bit. Because this scene is given no time to breathe. Ben dies. And we have, like, instant reactions, which isn't really how it would happen in real life. You would have, like, shock, And Ernie Hudson has a really bad line reading, which isn't really his fault because of the pacing, and the line itself is not great. But the only one whose reaction is really good to Ben's death is Addison, who lets out a really primal scream.
And then she just kind of breaks down and falls.
Right, that's a really good reaction. Us as an audience aren't really given enough time to, oh my God, Ben is dead.
Yeah. But we also were, told up front that
I mean, we knew this was going to happen, but still.
Right. I mean, even the episode title tells us he's not dead.
Right. I mean, well, plus he's a series regular, so it's not like they're going to kill him off.
It's not impossible. There is always, that option to turn the tables and shock you with a death.
Yeah, I just don't imagine that they're going to kill their lead character.
No.
Not this series,
Not
anyway.
Not right now. They're not going to. But, yeah, it wasn't... Maybe, they didn't give us an authentic moment to live in that death scene because, we all already did know what's going on, So they didn't put that energy there into making that more than what it was because, guess what?
Ben instantly comes back to life.
He comes back, the vitals show again, and everyone's very confused. How is that possible? I thought if his host dies, he dies.
That's the other thing, is that scene immediately after, where they're all discussing it, is like rapid fire. It's crazy.
More often than not, I feel like their conversations are really just to kind of help the audience through what they're questioning in the moment,
Also, I thought that Ian coming up with instantly that, we're in a time loop, was a little silly.
They said, obviously it's a time loop, and I forget who one of the girls was like, obviously?
I think that was Jen that said that.
Like, it's not obvious. And that's kind of the whole, dynamic we have, and it is usually Ian who's explaining things to the audience, like, I'm going to pretend like, this is normal stuff, but I'm going to dumb it down for these other people in the project because I'm dumbing it down for the audience.
And I kind of get why the pacing was so rapid, because I think they were just trying to get to the story. They didn't want to waste any more time. But still,
they wanted to take that chance to tell us, hey, this isn't a normal, here's what would happen if Ben fails.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I know I've told you this before. I don't know if I've mentioned it on air. I think I did, actually. But Adam and I are watching the original series. When we watched Boogeyman.
You have mentioned this.
Yeah, that was Adam's take on that episode is, he failed, so he started over.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, no, didn't really happen. It was in his head. And, but that was Adam's take after watching it was, well, no, he failed. And then he starts the leap over and has another chance to fix it. And, that's kind of what's happening here. At
the same time, they kind of have an arbitrary deadline on how many leaps he can take in this episode that I found a little silly.
Well, what I found silly is that they assumed it was going to be unlimited.
Right. Okay.
Because, I don't know, I went into this episode with the impression that he was going to get one shot at each. That's where I thought we were.
And that's actually what ended up happening.
Yeah, but then they the whole time were just like, oh yeah, you're going to, when you're this character again, do this differently. And when you're that character again, do this differently. And I was confused that they had made that assumption that it was going to be an unlimited time loop.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I don't know, Ian just jumps to this conclusion straight off without going through the loop again. I would like to have seen this happen a couple of times before Ian's like, oh yeah, we're in a time loop.
Right. As soon as he hit this second leap.
Right, and we didn't even actually see whether they knew that he leaped into the original place, like that he was in before. We didn't have any discussion of that. He's just like, oh, Ben's back there. Like, I don't know. It just seems like that could have been made a little bit more clear.
Okay, so we're back in the elevator. 10 o'clock again. And this time, Ben is Eugene Wagner, the younger scientist.
So Addison arrives to tell Ben that he died. He didn't seem to know that he died. I'm not really clear on whether he actually knew that he died or not. But she tells him that he's in a time loop, and he realizes that he needs to figure out what happened, or he will die again. In the future, Ian says that there's an expert on time loops in the building, which turns out to be Janice.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that convenient?
That's very convenient. And you know what I found interesting about this second elevator scene is now we get to see the same scene play out, except this time Colonel Parker's there, right? The first time we saw it, which it makes you think about when we see our leaper, taking over someone's lives. We got to see the exact same scene now. How would it have played out with the actual host being there? And in this case, we see Colonel Parker and he's talking about, wanting to hurry up because his kid's got a ballet recital. And it's like, wow, you miss this kind of context.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The first time around seeing a leap because you don't know what actually happened the first time.
You don't really know the character
there.
Character that Ben has leaped into.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. We don't actually have a mirror image this episode. Like, every character is a relevant character, which is fun. So Jen had published a paper on time loops. Of course, the team was a little what's the word? They weren't all on the same page about what to do with this information. You know, not a lot of people trust Janice.
Right. I would assume that most of them don't at this point. But I think they do end up getting her.
Yeah, and she didn't want to help.
No, Magic uses his magic to talk her into it. But yeah, initially she's just like, no, I don't want to help.
Yeah.
And I was actually a little confused as to why.
Well, you know, Janice doesn't think she can trust this team. And we don't know why yet. But Janice is very much like, I can't trust any of you. Ben can't trust any of you. Whatever our plan is, involves not you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a line that was said to Janice, something like, well, if this is part of your plan, then fine. But if this isn't your plan, maybe you should help us get him out of this.
Right.
And then she's like, okay, I'll help. So obviously this is not part of her plan.
Unless I
wouldn't
imagine that it would
she's
be.
Being super sneaky about it, which is what Jen comes back and is like, are you sure this wasn't her plan? Because this is awful convenient.
Yeah, okay, but at the same time, how would she have done that? How would she have set up Ben to end up in a time loop?
We don't know how she set up any of these leaps, right?
Right, I get that, but it's weird that it would start now when she's in custody, because how would she have set that up from where she was, is my question.
Right. Well, that's kind of Jen's whole thing is Janice really that many steps ahead of us? Did she know exactly when she was going to get caught?
I mean, I guess she did use Ziggy to look into their future, so maybe she knew exactly when she was going to get caught.
And it is possible that every single move Janice has made has been planned. Like, it is totally possible that she got into this project at the exact moment she wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know. I feel she was convincing in being convinced that she had to step in.
Ultimately, I don't think Janice had actually anything to do with this, for sure.
And I really don't think there's anything nefarious going on with Janice. I'm liking her more and more the more we're seeing of her. And I really hope all these characters learn to trust each other and learn to work together to solve whatever problem is. We don't even know what the problem is yet. But whatever's going on, I hope they can work together.
That was kind of my problem with them painting Janice as evil in the manner that they did earlier in the season.
Right. You mean by, like, poisoning her mother and letting her fall to the floor and not even helping her to the couch first?
That is exactly what I'm talking about. I think that doing that was kind of a mistake if you're ultimately not going to have her be an evil character. I mean, I guess we're trying to cast doubt on Janice, but still there's other ways to do that.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
It'll be interesting to look at all of these things once we actually know the bottom line of what's going on.
Right.
To go back and reevaluate some of this stuff.
Okay, so in the past, Ben tries the sky is falling approach, telling everybody, we're all gonna die! Yeah. Run for your lives! And it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And maybe if he was the lead scientist at this point, that might have worked. Mm-hmm. But he's like the junior guy, and the lead guy is just kind of like, stop. You're being ridiculous.
Right. There's no indication that anything bad is going to happen. Ben ends up going to the book, which I guess had the project notes in it or something. Yeah, this is where,
in the last leap, Eugene was writing, like, numbers down. It was 9.5. I don't know 9.5 what, but that's when the pen didn't work, and he borrowed a pencil from somebody. This is that paper he's writing on.
Right.
And now Ben is the scientist, so he's like, okay, I gotta go do science shit and try and stop this reactor from blowing up, right? He's like, obviously Eugene did something wrong. I gotta go do the numbers myself and fix it. And he's probably capable of doing that.
Yeah, he probably is. And the funny thing is, he unwittingly sets off the second explosion.
Yes. Of course, he doesn't know that yet, and we don't know that yet as an audience. But in this moment, when he's trying to solve the problem, he detonates the bomb. That he doesn't know about the bomb yet. We'll get to the bomb.
Yeah, okay, so... Yeah, he ends up distracting Woosley with the JFK speech. I'm not sure why this even works. But in the future, Jen has a ridiculous... Oh, yeah, we've already talked about this. This is from my notes. We talked about the scene where Jen had the theory that Janice somehow got Ben stuck in a time loop.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that was silly of her to question.
I don't know. I don't blame any of them for being suspicious of each other.
Right.
Like, they all have reasons to be suspicious of each other. And I think Jen and Janice are very strong, determined characters. Mm-hmm. So it does make total sense to me that they are constantly at odds.
Right. if they could have been frenemies in another lifetime.
And I really think they're going to end up being best friends.
Yeah,
I
probably.
really do.
Yeah, I think next season Janice is going to be a part of the project after this storyline plays out. Okay, so in the past, Ben discovers a bomb and attempts to disarm it, but it goes off. The explosion isn't what you would think it would be. It was just like a couple of sparks. But then they detect that hydrogen gas is leaking, which I'm guessing is from their reactor. And according to Ben, hydrogen mixing with oxygen is very bad.
And we get our second kaboom.
And then everybody dies.
Yeah. So he now knows the problem wasn't that something went wrong with the demonstration. We know now that there was an actual bomb somebody detonated, meaning somebody did this on purpose.
So that's actually the end of my notes. For some reason, most of my other notes...
when you said the end of your notes, I thought you meant much further than that.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't have any more notes. For some reason, it didn't, send with the document. Maybe I didn't save it when I sent it the first time. Okay. But so I'm going to have to go completely from memory from here on out.
I guess I'll kind of take over the point by point.
All right.
From my notes.
Okay.
So we get to the third leap, and this is where I said my note-taking was very wild, because I, literally have a page that says first leap, a page that says second leap.
Well, that's good.
It was a very different strategy than how I'm used to taking notes.
I'm glad that you're that organized this time around.
So, third leap. Now, Ben is the reporter, Mallory Yang. And I took note. This is now Ben's third time being a female.
Yes, and he also ends up a third time as a black man.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, so they took care of that.
In episode 11. So, yeah, we are still keeping pace, like we did in the original series. But I feel like that's a lot in 11 episodes compared to our first series, right? Right.
I think, definitely in the original series, there was way less women at this point in the series. Yeah. In fact, was there? No, there was probably one, I think. I think What Price Glory happened.
I don't know when that episode happened. It was in the first season, but I'm not sure what episode it was.
Pretty early season 2.
Oh, was it season 2?
Yeah.
Well, then it wasn't 11 leaps.
No. Well,
I don't know.
First season was 6 episodes long.
6 episodes, so 7 leaps.
So it's possible that it was 11 episodes. I'm not really sure.
Okay. So Ben has a lot of leaps now. Mm-hmm. Also, when you're adding 5 leaps in this one episode, his leap count is growing quickly.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. The original series did not do that very much. In fact, I can only recall one episode off the top of my head where he had a bunch of different leaps in the same episode. And that would be the Lee Harvey Oswald episode.
But he was always the same person until the very end. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were multiple leaps in a couple of episodes. What was the mob one?
Oh, yeah. Double Identity.
Yeah.
That was a first season episode.
Right. Mm-hmm. Where it specifically is calling out he was 2 different people in that episode.
Right.
And then there was a couple other times.
Yeah, it happened. It happened, just not very much.
Yeah, but definitely not like this, where he gets to, be everybody.
Right.
Okay, so Addison goes back. And she missed this whole thing where Janice came out and, started playing nice with everybody.
Right.
So Addison was very surprised to see Janice in the room. Like, she was not part of that whole discussion.
And she was not happy with that at all.
No, she's on Jen's side. Like, why are you trusting this woman? She's a psychopath. Mm-hmm. Why is she out of her cell?
Speaking of which, how are they holding her? They can't legally do that.
They've mentioned a cell. I mean, they're deep government. They can do whatever they want.
Okay. They can have her disappeared or, just straight up murdered if they want. Okay.
I think they can, yeah.
All right, so this time he's the reporter, as we mentioned, and he tries the tack of basically questioning everybody.
Mm-hmm. So Ziggy's determined that it must be one of these 5 people. They're the only ones who had access to the control room, and we know it was detonated from the control room. Mm-hmm. So Ziggy says, one of these people, you got to figure out who it is. You're not going to be able to disarm it. You have to solve this problem. And I'm not sure how knowing who did it's going to actually save the day, but that's where they're at.
I mean, it'd be helpful if they do.
It'd be helpful, right? But also, I guess at this point, they're going with the theory that you're going to keep reliving this. So eventually, if you know who it is, you can stop it right away. I guess. Right.
That's the current assumption that they're going on. That Ben has all the time and leaps in the world. But
So Ben's the reporter. So he's this Mallory Yang, and he's going around with the tape recorder and asking everybody crazy questions, which the reporter didn't do. She was really just kind of standing there and taking it all in, in all of the iterations where she's there. So Ben asks Woosley, do you have any enemies? He asks Colonel Parker about the safety of the project. And he starts talking about communists.
Right. He's trying to gather like who of these 5 people might not think this is a good idea, and none of them end up seeming like a suspect at the end of their
he's
interviews.
not getting anywhere with this. And it was like a really quick little montage, but I liked it. I liked how we got to see all of these interviews really quickly.
That's actually where I really started to enjoy the episode, is seeing Ben's different approaches as different people in every
and
way.
How can I use this person's situation to my advantage of solving this game of Clue. Let's see. This is where we learned that Eugene's been working with Woolsey since he was a teenager. He's been under him his whole time. It reminded me of Sam and
Al?
No, what was his name?
Doctor something or other.
The guy with the cabin?
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember his name. Yeah, I'm not.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Hopefully some of you guys know what we're talking about.
He was
too.
like Sam's mentor.
Yeah, right.
Prior to like applied science. Like this is the person who he was all theoretical with at MIT.
Right.
And this reminded me of that. We see a picture of Woolsey and Eugene when Eugene was a teenager, and this is interesting once we find out, what's really going on here. Like you can see he looked up to this man.
It's a nice little character detail.
Yeah,
sure.
we can see they were close. They weren't just working together for a month on this project. They've been together a long time. And it really helps us understand Eugene's motivations, later on when we get to that.
So yeah, he gets nowhere with that.
Yeah.
And
Mo, this is where he talks about how he loves science fiction, and his mom always brought him these sci-fi books, and that's why he's here.
That's actually why he ends up relating to the janitor, because the janitor also likes science fiction as well.
That's what I'm talking about, the janitor.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Mo was, during the interview, was just like, yeah, I love this. Like, this is amazing. I'm so happy to be a part of this. Because it's science fiction, nuclear reactor. This is crazy. And then Mo, the janitor, goes off to clean up that soda. So we keep referencing the soda, and I expected this soda to be more important than it ended up being. So that was a little bit of a letdown to me. Like, the soda does come into play, but...
It does, in a really goopy way.
But it didn't, it was still kind of like an, okay, so what? Like, it wasn't, key. I expected it to be, really key.
Right.
Like the soda is some nuclear accelerant or something. I don't know.
Maybe. So after he fails to get any information from anybody that he thinks he can use, he ends up accidentally triggering the tape recorder of the reporter. So
he realizes that before getting in the elevator, before this leap starts over and over, Mallory had already recorded the beginning of her tour. And so him and Addison listen to it. And I thought it was funny that they tell us, oh, well, you can go ahead and listen through the earphones, because Addison says, I can hear whatever you hear. Like, I don't need it to be playing in the room. I'm tuned into your brain.
Right.
So I can hear whatever your ears are hearing.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It was interesting. I also don't know if it was really...
accurate?
Relevant?
Right.
Like, why are we learning that right now?
It's an interesting power that Addison suddenly has.
Yeah.
For sure. So he discovers that the reporter thinks that Woosley is participating in a cover-up.
Yeah, she's here to expose him, and this place is a front. But we don't know what at this point. What is she talking about? So she's doing some, undercover investigating here. She's not just covering the piece that they want her to cover. She's here to expose this place as a front for some nefarious thing that's going on. And so now we really know the plot is thickened. There is some real motive happening here, but Ben and Addison have no idea what's going on. And
pretty soon, they're all going to die again.
And then it just kaboom.
We actually
over.
see
so
the
this
scene
time
playing
around,
out in the background.
Right, we can see, Colonel Parker's trying to light a cigar, and Woolsey stops him, and some of these same comments we've heard before, they're there, but we're focusing now on Ben, who's completely left that scenario behind and is focusing on solving this mystery. And only got more questions before dying for a third time.
It's interesting to watch Ben progress in this episode because each time that he dies, he gets more and more bored with the act of dying. So it's pretty funny to watch, like especially the last one where he's just like, "Yep, I'm about to die, and you guys aren't gonna remember any of this. And none of this matters." But yeah.
Right. Okay, so after that explosion, we get a little heart-to-heart between Addison and Magic, and they talk about, Addison says, really, she's been mourning Ben ever since the moment he left. Even though he's not dead, it's kind of the same thing. Like, he's not here.
Right.
And the Ben I knew is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still have him. He's still there, but is he really the same person I knew?
Right.
And am I ever going to get to actually physically be with him again?
Mm-hmm. And Magic we also actually get more conversation about Magic's motivations of opening the project, specifically his desire to get Sam home in that scene.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I think that was later.
I thought it was during this scene, like where where Addison and Magic are talking.
That is later when Magic is talking to Jen.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Huh. See, this is what I get for not having most of my notes.
I skipped ahead in my notes. You're thinking of that scene. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, we get a lot of these little heart-to-hearts, right, between different characters at the project, and we learn how they're kind of coping with what's going on. And, it does kind of play with the pacing a little bit, And I know a lot of people complain about the project stuff existing at all. I like the project stuff, but
I have issues with it.
It is sometimes, like, hard to fit in.
There are some scenes that happen in this episode, the heart-to-hearts, that I feel like we've seen some variation of in every single episode of the season so far. And sometimes I just think that there's no point to some of them.
Yeah.
Like, we can cut some of those scenes out.
Yeah. But also some of it might be more relevant once we really know the big picture.
Mm-hmm. It's possible.
Like, they're sprinkle in little things like the stuff about the parents. We're learning about different people's parents. Well, some of that has to come back and mean something at some point.
And
right?
If it doesn't, then we're just wasting time.
Right.
As I've said a couple of times.
Like, who is Jen's father?
Mm-hmm.
They're making a big deal out of Jen's father. We've mentioned him like 4 times now.
Right. That's why I was thinking that he
has to be something.
Some factors into the plot somehow.
Yeah.
So this time he's actually Woolsey.
He's Woolsey, the head doctor, Nobel Prize winner dude who's running the show, and
his tack this time is just to go straight at the reporter and be like, "What do you know?"
Yeah,
and
right.
the reporter is
remember,
not receptive.
Ben had just heard her note, so now he's like, "I got to know what she's talking about. I'm going to go to her to confront her." But you got to remember, you're now the dude that she's trying to expose. She's not going to be helpful.
Yeah, this was not a good tactic on Ben's part. I kind of get why he did it.
He's like, "I'm on your side."
Right.
Are you though? Like,
not your host, not the person you're leaped into now. That's for sure.
You're clearly the person who she's least likely to talk to about this.
Right.
And she makes some comment that, she thinks that they're going to go after her sister. She says, "How can you sleep at night?" And Ben's just like, wow, what is this guy up to? Like, some serious shit's going down here.
Right.
And at this point, Ziggy has narrowed down the suspects to be Woolsey himself or the janitor.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason is because they've ruled out the other people. Because when Ben was the other people, the explosion still happened.
Right.
Right. So we will learn that that's not necessarily true. Ziggy has very false logic here.
I mean, it's understandable logic, but Ziggy is still wrong.
Yeah. As Ziggy likes to be.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, I'm really missing getting Ziggy as a character. It still feels like they have not given Ziggy a real AI identity yet, and I miss it.
I read some comments from Deborah Pratt that they were going to bring that in, and I have yet to see that.
Right.
So it's weird. Maybe it's still going to happen a little bit later.
Maybe it's going to happen. Maybe it's going to happen in some link to talking about the original series in some deeper fashion. But I'm missing Ziggy.
Mm-hmm.
Ziggy's barely a side reference at this point.
Right.
They treat Ziggy as a search engine.
Right, basically.
And it's sad.
And I feel like if you go on to Google, you could get more information than Ziggy has so far in this series.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, we're back at the project, and Ian ends up talking to Janice, and they have the heart-to-heart, where, he mentions, or they mention the fact that Look, I know you don't trust me. And she says, well, that's not personal. I just can't trust you. I'm not sure how you don't take that personally, but whatever.
They don't trust her either, though.
Right. That's the thing.
This is when we learn it's not a time loop.
Right.
It is what words were used here? I didn't actually write down the words. They said like a closed series of leaps or something like that. And I'm not sure how they figured that out at this moment.
Right. I'm not really clear on that either.
But this is where I was like, that's kind of how I thought it was going to be. Right. Until they started talking about next time you're this person and next time you're that person. I was like, oh, I was wrong.
Right.
But now they're like, they were wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm just left, why did you assume that in the first place? And why now do you know that's not true?
Yeah,
I missed a step there.
There are several, like, for the rest of the episode, like, every time they have a project scene, I'm like, how do you get there? What are you talking about? But anyway, so they've determined that basically Ben only has one more leap.
Yeah, he's Dr. Woolsey now. He only has one more leap, which is the janitor. Which at this point they think it's one of those two that did it, because when he's that person, he's not going to set off the bomb, right? That's their assumption. And then kaboom!
Mm-hmm. Everybody dies.
Kaboom!
Again.
Everybody dies again. Now we're led to believe it's not Woolsey, because Ben's Woolsey. He's just kind of standing here, and things still exploded.
Yeah, a note about that scene. Addison goes to talk to Ben about that.
This is that scene
that
where he just gave up, right? He's talking to Addison.
Yeah, whatever, I'm going to die.
They have this whole conversation about, this is when Addison's telling him, you only got one shot left. I'm so sorry. We didn't realize. And then it pans out and everybody's looking at him like, are you okay?
Right.
And he's just like, never mind.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You're all going to die and not remember it anyway.
And then it
boom.
happens.
Yeah.
And that's like a really fast leap, by the way. I'm wondering if our actual culprit here set it off sooner because they saw that Woolsey was suspicious now.
Right. That Woolsey is just sitting there talking about it.
Yeah. So they were like, well, let's just get this over with and hit the bomb.
Right.
So now we get our fifth and final leap. He is now Mo Murphy, the janitor. And his first reaction is, let's go back down to the reactor where the bomb is that he saw when he was Eugene and try and disarm it again. And Addison's like, you can't disarm it. He's like, I have to try.
Right.
Like, what else am I going to do? I don't know what else to do. I have to disarm it.
But wouldn't you know it, the janitor doesn't have access.
The janitor doesn't have access to the reactor. And he's like, oh, yeah, when I was the scientist, nobody cared that I went in there. But now they're stopping me because this janitor only has level 2 clearance. His little name tag has a 2. Everybody else has a 3. So he's allowed in the control room, but not in the actual reactor.
I guess that makes sense.
It does, because, I mean, there's not a garbage can down there to clean. But also, this should really be, foretelling that the janitor didn't do it. Mm-hmm. Because whoever set that bomb put it in the reactor.
Right. It's
not the janitor. It's not the reporter. They don't have access to put that bomb there.
Right.
But talking to this MP that, tells him he doesn't have access there, he gets the realization that as the janitor, he has now his keys to everybody's offices. So he heads to Woolsey's office, trying to figure out a clue to what's going on.
Before that, we have the guard calling Woolsey to report that there might be a problem. And then that guard just completely disappears.
Yeah.
Woolsey's like, handle it! And then the guard just is nowhere to be found ever again for the rest of the episode.
Right, yeah. He didn't handle it.
No, he did nothing. He's
he handled it because, he got the janitor to walk away from the reactor.
I guess so. So he goes to the office. He realizes he's not in a groundhog scenario. He's in a Rashomon-like scenario.
And this is when the soda comes back into play. Mm-hmm. Woolsey trips on the soda because the janitor didn't clean it up this time. Because the janitor is now Ben, who has better things to worry about than soda.
In my notes, I was like, well, that's funny and pathetic at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the janitor didn't pick up the soda. Nobody else is going to do it. And somebody's going to trip and fall on it. That's just sad and pathetic.
And the whole end of it all is we're told, because he tripped, we gained a few extra minutes before the demo's going to happen because they're dealing with, his fall. Mm-hmm. Which felt very anticlimactic to me. That we're looking at this soda spill has been showed us every time around like it's some big deal. And the whole thing is, it gave us 5 more minutes.
Right.
I don't know. I felt like that should have been more of something.
Right. Definitely a letdown there.
So Ben / Mo the janitor is now hanging out in Woolsey's office, and he sees a note on the desk, a sticky note. It says, "The longest day, October 4th." And Addison's all like, "Ooh, that's a clue." And Ben's just like, "No, he's going to see a movie."
It's interesting. Did we ever get the idea that Ben was a movie buff this much before this episode?
I don't think so. No. But also, I feel like Ben knows more about his life now than he ever did before.
Oh,
like,
that's a good
his
point.
memory's very much back, strong.
Mm-hmm.
Even just a couple leaps ago, he had very little memory.
Right.
And now he seems, and Addison points that out. She's like, "I'm glad that you remember all these movie references when, it took you 4 leaps to remember I exist."
Right. By the way, the movie that he referenced earlier, Rashomon, is a movie that shows the same events from different characters' perspectives, which is more along the lines of what this episode was actually like over Groundhog Day. So that was interesting to note. There's many movies that are that copy that formula, for the record.
There's a TV show, The Affair, which is it's either HBO or Showtime. I love that show. And every time I try explaining to Adam what that show is, he brings up that movie. Which, I think it's a great plot device, to
absolutely.
be like, here's the same thing, but from different people's perspectives, because it plays into, what we're going to get to in a minute, which is, in your mind, you're the hero of your own story.
That was actually another great point that this episode brings up.
And that's kind of what you see whenever you're looking at those whose perspective are we coming from stories, where your own perspective, what you see in your life, is not the same thing as the person right next to you. Right. Like, it's never going to be.
Everybody perceives things
You
differently.
can experience the exact same thing and come away with something totally different from it. And I think that's cool to think about.
Oh, absolutely.
And, they did show us that in this episode where, like I was saying earlier, we just get to see these subtle differences with how a scene's played out. Even lines change from one playthrough to the next just because one character's there and a different character is not there.
Right. And they say different things because Ben reacts in a certain way and talks in certain ways.
Right, and doesn't say something that the host would have said originally.
Right.
So we got all these movie references. We find out The Longest Day is just a movie. He's going to the movies on October 4th. That's not a clue. But then it was Colonel Parker who walks by.
Was that Colonel Parker?
Yeah.
Why did he walk by the first time? Oh, you know why? Okay. So the second time that he came back, for some reason, he overheard Ben talking about, something blowing up, whereas the first time Ben wasn't talking about that.
Yeah, so he walks by, and Ben grabs the trash can and starts whistling. Like, doo-doo-doo, I'm just the janitor, doing my job.
Yeah, that's totally convincing.
Changing the trash. So, in the trash that he's holding, where... I don't know, wouldn't you have looked in the trash originally?
And, that's another problem I have, is, why is the super secret plan ripped up in the trash
memo,
can?
Just kind of ripped in half, sitting in the trash all by itself.
Right.
This super secret thing is just right there. But he found it by mistake, because he was pretending to take out the trash.
Yes, that was quite a coincidence. If he doesn't do that, he's probably a dead man.
Yeah. So, he finds the memo, and guess what? The reactor is not meant for renewable energy. They're making weapons. Big surprise that our government is trying to use this nuclear energy for weapons.
Yeah, color me shocked that our government is doing something shady.
Yeah. And so this is what Mallory had wind of. And we don't know how she knew that. But Mallory knows that this is a cover-up. And what she's here to expose is the truth. And we'll soon learn who else knew about it. But if this is how they're treating their secrets, it doesn't seem like it's that great of a secret.
Right.
Everybody knows.
Rip it up and leave most of it readable by piecing it
together easily. Did they not have shredders in 1962?
I would think they would.
Or burn it.
Right.
When you're ready to get rid of it. Self-destruct.
Yep.
We now know the motive. We still aren't entirely clear right in that second who is doing this or why they personally are deciding to blow themselves up and everybody. But we know the motive now is that this is not a good project.
Mm-hmm.
It's here for bad reasons. And we know that, Woolsey is in on it.
Right.
And then we go back to the project for a minute.
Yeah, this scene totally does not make any sense to me.
So, Jen has this great idea. Let's pull the plug on the accelerator. Turn it off. And Ian's like, well, we don't really know what's going to happen if we do that. Should we really do that?
Well, here's the thing I'm confused about. The quantum accelerator, at least as far as the original series is concerned, all it did was leap Sam.
Accelerate them.
Right. It leaped Sam, and then it was done.
And it was done.
It had nothing to do with anything else for the rest of the
right.
series.
I mean, the project had no impact on Sam leaping. The only thing they were doing at that point was using Ziggy to help him figure out the history.
Now, if you want to change what the Project Accelerator does, fine, but you need to explain that.
Yeah.
And in this episode, it's just like, turn off the Project Accelerator.
It's like,
what is that?
That's an option? Like,
First
we've
of all,
never talked about that before.
What is that even going to do? Is it going to return Ben to the
Ian's
present?
made it clear that they don't know what it's going to do.
Right. So,
But if it's going to do something, why have we not talked about this before?
Mm-hmm.
Why have we not sat as a team and speculated, well, we can't retrieve him. If we turn it off, is he going to come back?
Right.
Is it going to make us lose contact with him? Is it going to kill him? I can see them not taking the risk and doing it.
Right.
If they really don't know what it's going to do. But shouldn't we have had some discussion that that's a thing we could do?
Right, right.
And it's never been brought up before.
Nope, not until this episode. And
in this moment, when they have like just seconds to figure out what they're going to do to help Ben because the thing's going to explode again, and they've come to the conclusion that it's for keeps this time.
Right.
And Ian's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Janice very insistently says, you cannot do that. He has to finish his leap. If you turn it off, it might break the entire trajectory that I have him on. And all this is for nothing. She's still not willing to tell them what the heck is going on and why it's so important that he's on the trajectory.
Right.
But she makes it very clear that she's against it. And they're just like, when does she get a vote?
Right, right.
Like, I don't care what you think.
But Magic ends up taking her side.
Magic takes Janice's side. And Jen gets really upset about that. I don't know if that's quite fair, because...
Honestly, this is the only option that makes even remote sense to me.
Is it really, like, this isn't really about him taking Janice's side. Like, Ian was also against it.
Right.
Like, the person who actually, like, knows what's going on with Ziggy.
Right. I mean, Janice is a security person. Like, what would she know about the project's effects?
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about something that could potentially kill Ben. Now, if her logic is, well, Ben's probably going to fail and he's going to die, we know that definitely. If he fails, he's going to die. We don't know what happens when we turn off the accelerator, so maybe we try it. But, yeah, I just... It
didn't feel like the whole conversation had enough context. It was all just very, like,
it was very much thrown at us.
Yeah, right, and it was in such a quick... Now, if they had previously debated doing this and talked about what could or couldn't happen previously to this moment, even in another leap, I feel like it'd be more relevant here. Like, that we're going back to this topic. Maybe this is when we should try it.
Right.
But that hasn't happened.
Yeah, so for me, the scene didn't really work. It didn't make a whole lot of sense as presented.
So we go back to the past, and Colonel Parker, this is when he's come back, he's pulled a gun out on Ben, and says, you're the one who sent the letters, aren't you? Of course, Ben doesn't know what he's talking about. Mo wouldn't have known either, because Mo is not the one who sent the letters. And these letters were going to the Colonel's house, saying, kill the project, or I will. Now, Ben doesn't know what this is going on, but he recognized the letter, like the paper.
He was previously the Colonel, and he saw the letter in his pocket. He didn't get a chance to look at it.
Right. So he said, let me see that. And for some reason, the Colonel, who's holding a gun on this janitor, is like, sure, here, you can look at it.
I don't know. Somehow Ben convinced the Colonel that he's not actually the threat.
Yeah, but
I don't know how.
But why would you give this janitor any attention right now?
Right.
Like, okay, but he trusts him. And Ben suddenly realizes what's up. And he doesn't tell us right away. And it didn't click to me exactly in that moment. Like, Ben does that a lot. He'll be like, he'll get that aha moment. Kind of Dr. Housey, like.
Right, exactly.
Where it's like, he knows what's going on, we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's about to tell us.
It is funny to me that the hero of the story ends up being the janitor of all people.
Yeah. So the pages, the paper, it came from that notebook, Eugene's notebook, where all of the notes were missing. When, you know, Ben went to do the calculations, the pages were ripped out of that notebook.
Right.
And that's the paper that these letters are written on. And he realizes that Eugene wrote the letters. And that takes the giant leap then of knowing he's the one who set the bomb. Which still, I don't know if that leap is such an easy leap to make.
I mean, at that point, it kind of makes sense, because who else do you have at that point as a suspect?
But it was kind of like, oh, you wrote a letter, you killed us all. It was a little bit of a leap.
A stretch, I get that.
Yeah. But he confronts Eugene. Everybody's there. And Eugene admits it right away. So we know he's right now. And Eugene says, yeah, I found that memo. You know, the one that's just hanging out in the trash can, waiting to be found by everybody, including the actual janitor when he did come to empty the trash. Found that memo. And I did what I had to do to stop you. Because Eugene did not know. Like, without finding this memo that he wasn't supposed to find, he was not in on this.
Right.
Eugene thought they're working on renewable energy. They're doing a good thing. And when he found out that his mentor, Dr. Edwin Woolsey, was supporting what they're really doing here, he was beside himself, right? He felt deceived. He felt betrayed. And he said, the only way I can stop this is by blowing it up. And because of whatever reason, the only way he could detonate it was from inside. Like, they explained that, but I'm not sure why that was the case.
Ben ended up giving an explanation I didn't quite understand.
Yeah, it's something to do with, like, he had to be within a certain distance. If this guy's the genius he is, I'm sure he could have come up with a way to detonate it from further away, but
not only that,
whatever.
This is the only way to go. I mean, you have a reporter right there. You could expose everything to the reporter.
Yeah.
In fact, it makes sense that Eugene would be the source of the reporter's information.
Right.
So why not just use the reporter to report the story rather than blowing everything up?
He was convinced that this is the only way to do it. Blow it up. He's going to be a martyr. He's going to kill these 5 people, although we know it's really more than 5 because there's a lot of the people in the building. But they only talk about, you're killing these 5 people.
Mm-hmm. They're the only people that matter.
And that's when it was revealed, which I hadn't figured out, that the pen was the trigger. And we see that scene of Ben earlier when he was Eugene clicking that pen, and you realize Ben's the one that set it off in that scenario.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
If he had known that it was the pen, he could have stopped it from happening. But actually, going back to that scene, because I don't think I discussed this, it's kind of weird that Ben clicks the pen and then has all this time to discover the bomb.
Yeah, so it must have been like, it's going to happen X amount of time after that click. You know, it must be on a timer from that click.
Right.
Because the first time around, you know, we see Eugene click the pen. Oh, it doesn't work. Let me borrow your pencil. He writes the notes, and the demonstration continues.
Right. We definitely have some time.
It's timed so that it goes off the same time that the demonstration was happening. So I feel like Eugene had timed it that way so that these people wouldn't be suspicious at all. Although, does it really matter because you're all about to be dead? So why does it matter that they don't know you're doing this?
Right.
You should have told them you're doing this.
Like, haha, I'm about to kill all of you.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, why wouldn't you have tried to get the innocent people out?
Mm-hmm.
He's a little inside himself here.
Right.
And this is when Ben has this great, you know, little monologue, and he tells Eugene, the people in this room are going to die, you know, and he's not going to get to go to his kid's ballet recital. They're going to grow up without a father. And Mallory's sister is gonna, you know, break down at her funeral, and it's gonna be this, and you know, and not there are gonna be not great things that happen in history, but you know what? You can make a difference today. You can save our lives.
Not to mention the fact that none of this is gonna matter anyway. He's gonna detonate that bomb. It's gonna explode, and the government is still gonna go ahead with their plans to make nuclear weapons from this. They're still going to do shady things. He's not going to accomplish anything while killing all these people at the same time and affecting numerous lives.
So, and Ben's motivation here is he did realize, wow, that other time, I'm the one that set the bomb off. And this is where he says, you know, you think you're the hero of your own story, but maybe you're not. And he's telling Eugene to look at himself, what he's doing from a different perspective, but also Ben is realizing in this moment, like, wow, like, I think I'm the good guy, but am I? So he's also having this little complex over this realization.
Which is what we end up discussing in the scene after this. After the day is saved, Ben ends up discussing with Addison, like, Eugene thought he was doing the right thing.
Right.
How do we know that we aren't the villains of this story?
And we got the little here's everybody's happily ever after from Addison. Janitor's the one who saved the day because, you know, Ben figured it out while he was the janitor. So, like, everybody loves him. He ends up writing a sci-fi book about it, which is funny because he wasn't even there during the part that, you know, he was a hero in.
Right.
Which means, technically, did he live through any of it? No, because he didn't live through the other parts because they didn't happen. So he writes a story about something that he wasn't even there for.
He never even really got to see the nuclear reactor because none of those events actually happened.
Right.
Yeah. So
he just got to live through the aftermath of it.
Right.
And he was told how he was the hero that solved the bomb. And he wrote a sci-fi story out of it. I wonder if that sci-fi story gives us any indication on what's happening with the hosts during these leaps.
That'd be nice.
Are they conscious of what's happening because they're inside the body too? Are they somewhere else?
That is definitely something that I would have liked to have gotten information on during the original series, and even now. I hope at some point they actually do show us that. They didn't during the course of this episode.
And I saw a comment, somebody on, I don't remember if it was in Facebook or on Twitter, I saw somebody make a comment that Jen in this episode hinted at a waiting room. And I did not
don't recall
catch
that
anything that could be that. So I don't know if this person was off or if I missed something. But that's something I want to dig into. I don't know what this person was talking about. I should have responded and been like, what are you talking about? But I didn't.
Maybe you can find that comment.
And, because if there was some hint at that, I'm very curious about it. Because I didn't catch anything.
I didn't see any reference to that.
So he writes a book. Mallory writes an expose, what she had wanted to do. And because of her expose, it now does get used for sustainable energy instead of nuclear weapons. Yay.
So we change history to reflect more of our current actual history.
Yeah, even though we're not sure on what that actual history is.
Well, in this case, it was both used for, sustainable energy, I guess, but also we ended up inventing nuclear weapons as well, so
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we already had nuclear weapons before 62, didn't we?
I'm not really sure.
See, we're not great with the history on this one.
I'm not sure when the atom bomb was created, which was by Oppenheimer. That happened during the Second World War or the First? No, actually it was the First.
That would have been long before 62 then.
Right, that was in the 40s, I think.
World War I was in 1917.
Right.
World War II was in the 40s. I'm not sure when that happened, but yeah, it was before 62.
Right.
We sound like really smart people right now.
Yes. Too bad we don't have Adam in on this, because he would be able to tell us for sure.
He'd give us a full breakdown on the history. But that's interesting.
And then this thing would end up like 3 hours long.
Because, I mean, that was kind of, like, that's the real history behind this whole thought, right? Mm-hmm. Is he did express, like, I'm sorry I invented this. Mm-hmm. That's a real thing, Yeah,
absolutely. And there's actually a movie by Christopher Nolan coming out about Oppenheimer. And I'm pretty excited to see that.
Oh, then maybe we'll learn some of the history from
Yes,
that.
maybe. I'll look it up after I get off the podcast. Not that it'll do us any good now, but
And as you had mentioned, Ben goes off into this whole tangent like, am I a good person? Are we really? Should we be screwing around in history?
Because the same technology that can be used to save lives, as Addison says, can also be used to do bad things.
Yeah.
Which is what the Evil Leaper project was.
So yeah, this is definitely like kind of would be a good segue if they do want to bring up Evil Leapers. Mm-hmm. Like in a more concrete way than whatever's going on with Ramirez. We have speculation Ramirez might have something to do with the Evil Leaper project.
Martinez, I think.
Oh, Martinez.
And actually, Janice has already alluded that the people who send Martinez are not good people.
Right.
But we don't know.
We don't know if that's the Evil Leapers.
Right.
Right. Like, are we gonna get into that specific lore or not? It's still yet to be seen. So now we have this scene between Jen and Magic. We get their heart to heart now, and Jen's really pissed off with Magic and says, why did you side with Janice?
And it was kind of a dumb argument to me because, like, he says, well, it was the correct answer. And that's, of course, the end of the conversation as far as I'm concerned. It was right.
Right.
But Jen's still going on
and
about
also,
it.
like I said before, he wasn't necessarily just siding with Janice. He
Right.
was
Ian
making
was also
a
against
decision about should we do this or that. And it wasn't like everybody against Janice and he went with Janice.
Right.
And yeah, Jen seems really kind of butthurt about the fact that nobody listened to her. But we still don't know what would have happened if we listened to her.
Right. For all we know, Ben could be dead if we listened to Jen.
And during this heart-to-heart, Magic kind of reveals he regrets not letting Janice in the project.
That was actually kind of hinted at in the last episode, too.
Yeah. So, but he specifically says, when Beth asked me to keep her off of the project, I should not have honored Beth's wish. I should have let Janice on the project. He says, this is her birthright, and she deserves to be here. And they even go as far as saying, Jen's like, yeah, I wonder what it would have been like if she was here the whole time.
We probably would have been best friends.
Would we have been friends? Would Ben have gone to her instead of anybody else still? Would he have leapt? Like, would any of this be happening if she was here? How would it be differently? And he was kind of like, I wish we could know. And it felt totally foreshadowing to me.
It's funny, though, because, like, the Magic makes the comment about, well, there's no way to go back and fix it. But yes, there is. You are the leader of a quantum leap time traveling project.
Right, which we have been feeling for a while is about to get more timey-wimey, right? Mm-hmm. And I really felt like foreshadowing. I think we're going to get an alternate history episode, if not an entire timeline reset at some point, where Janice has been there the whole time. I really feel like they were foreshadowing that we're going to get to see that. Because this conversation, like, it just kind of kept going. It was a little campy. That it feels like they have to be hinting at this is something that's going to come. Like, I totally see that playing back in a previously on clip.
Right.
They're gonna remind us of this conversation at some point. And the other thing that I wrote down in my notes, they're talking about how this is her birthright. Where are the other sisters?
Yeah, we have.
There's been no mention of Sam having 3 other daughters.
Al, you mean? Because
yes, Al. We learned in the closing title card, Al and Beth have 4 daughters.
Right.
Janice is one of them. Who are the other 3? Why have they never been mentioned? Are they retconned out of the story?
Quite
Did
possibly.
Al and Beth only have 1 daughter in this history? And if so, why?
Right.
Why are we not mentioning the fact that we were told they have 4 daughters?
Yeah, maybe the creators just forgot about that and
just gave them a daughter, and here we are.
Or maybe they just think introducing all 3 of the other.
I mean, I don't need them all introduced, but I'd like a reference to the fact that there's other daughters out there, since we've already been told there are.
Right.
I don't know. And then we get to see Janice and Addison, who's never had a good interaction.
Nope.
Right? And they go on the whole, like, yeah, you don't trust me, great, bye. And Janice is like, well, wait. Actually, you guys did a good job today. And don't make me regret this, but I'm going to give you a name.
See, the fact that they ended there without revealing the name pisses me off.
So they said, she says, I'm going to give you the name of the person who told Ben to leap in the first place. So finally, Janice is ready to give some information. Now, we don't even know if she's being honest, but she's about to give some information. So, from what we can gather so far, somebody came to Ben, presumably somebody involved in time travel in some capacity, said, guess what, this is going to happen if you don't fix it. Ben went to Janice, for whatever reason, for help, and they concocted this whole thing, right, based on whatever this person said. So Janice is ready to tell Addison, I'm going to give you the name. And then it ends. We have no leap out.
Right.
Which is something that's been happening a lot.
Yep.
And it ends there on a cliffhanger. Twitter went kind of crazy on that fact. Every single post was, what's the name? Why is it a cliffhanger? And here's my take. If they come back next week or whenever they get back to this conversation...
It has to be someone we know.
It has to be a name we know. Because if it's like, here's some new character you've never heard of, that's like, a really shitty thing to put a cliffhanger on, right?
Like,
if it's Joe Schmo, then, okay, that's a letdown. But if you're going to make us sit on this and cliffhang about it and sit here and guess who it has to be somebody we know.
Right.
Either somebody in this series that we've already met, or somebody from the original series, a name we know. And it could literally be anybody. It could be.
Could be Sam's wife, Donna.
Yep.
Could be Sam himself. Could be Al for some reason.
It could be Sam, Al, Donna, Sammy Joe.
Right.
Gushy. I saw someone guess Verbena Beeks. It could be Aaliyah.
Right.
Or anybody involved in the Evil Leaper project. It could be Martinez. Could be Tina. It could be literally any name we've ever met. It could be somebody from a Leap.
Right.
Any Leap. They could be involved in this. But if it's not a name we know, I'm going to be disappointed.
I'm going to be mad if it's not at least some recognizable name.
Yeah, it has to be somebody we know from somewhere in this universe.
Otherwise, you might as well just mention the name at the end of this episode.
Right, exactly.
Because if you're going to wait another week for us to find out that name, it better be something significant.
Yeah. And maybe it's Sam.
Yeah, I would like that.
Maybe we're getting a Scott Bakula
and
appearance.
they've just been lying to us all season, which I did speculate was possible.
Or maybe that's wishful thinking.
Right.
Or who knows? It could literally be anything. What would be your favorite revelation?
See, I don't think...
Other than, oh, it's Sam and we're getting Scott Bakula back.
I don't think they'd reveal that Sam is going to be part of the series now. They would wait till, like, pretty much the final episode of the season.
Even if we get a name, though, it doesn't mean he's coming back right away.
Right.
But it would just confirm he's a part of this.
Let's see. Yeah. Something like Sammy Joe. I don't think Al Calbiji makes any sense because we're not going to see him.
Yeah.
So
but there could be some timey-wimey explanation of how he told Ben this before he died.
It's possible, maybe. Yeah. Something like Sammy Joe.
I think the easiest cop-out answer would be Addison herself.
But if Addison tells Ben about it, then how is her life in danger?
Like a future version of Addison that's involved in something involving her leaping tells Ben, if you can change this, this, and this, we can fix it. But you can't tell me or I'll stop you.
Right.
I think that'd be too easy, though.
I think that'd be kind of confusing and doesn't really fit with what we've been told. Like that it's somehow going to be about Addison dying.
Yeah. I mean,
her life being in danger.
If on her dying breath she tells him, you can save me by leaping. I don't know. I don't know. I hope we find out next week. I hope they don't drag this on. I hope we get right back to that scene. Okay, what's the name? And let's figure out what it means.
You can't do anything else other than doing that.
Right.
Like you have to.
As far as project scenes.
Right. So actually next week.
So yeah, there was no leap out, but we did have a trailer.
Right. And I also have a title for the episode, Let Them Play. And I also have an episode description, which I got off Spoiler TV. And that reads as follows. Ben finds himself in 2012 in the midst of the Mendez family as they help their transgender daughter, Dia, who dreams of playing on her high school basketball team. Magic and Jen discover another piece of the puzzle of why Ben left in the first place. So, next week, we're going to be dealing with transgender issues, and I have a funny feeling that this episode is going to be on the controversial side.
Yes. I had known this episode was coming. I've seen people talking about it ahead of time, particularly when they were casting this role and it was being filmed, and I don't know. It's
gonna touch on a pretty touchy topic. It's not even just the anti-woke crowd that's gonna have a problem here.
I think it's gonna be a great episode.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it. I think that Ian is gonna have some great commentary in this episode, and we're finally gonna get something from Ian.
They definitely have to be front and center for this episode.
Yes.
Otherwise, that's a waste of...
We're definitely gonna get their perspective on the queer community. I've already seen hate.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like I said, I was in Twitter last night after the episode aired, and as soon as this trailer aired, and it was only one comment I saw. I wasn't looking for them. I was more looking, about just discussion on this episode, but I just saw one comment, and they posted it right after the trailer, and it was very hateful. They basically said, fire the writers. No, I mean, they did say that, not basically. They said something like, oh, we went from woke to super woke. Fire the writers. And it's just like, oh my goodness.
We went from not dealing with these topics, of any controversial topics or politics at all, to suddenly dealing with that issue.
Yeah, and you know
because
what?
the series has not been woke or even, remotely touching on any topics up until this point.
I hate how people use this term woke and express like oh, that there's something bad about dealing with current issues.
Well,
like I don't understand how people get away with expressing their hatred and bigotry by trying to be insulting by just saying the word woke. Like, I don't get the whole concept behind that.
It's funny because the word woke used to mean something entirely different. The word itself has been corrupted in our language to be used like as an insult.
Right.
But it meant something entirely different from what it does now.
And I think it's really sad that there's people out there that are so hateful to their fellow humans that they're going to get upset to see a character represented on a fictitious television show that's different than they are. Like, I don't understand where people's headspace is at that this is such a problem for them. And I think it's really sad that I know the show is going to get a lot of hate for doing this. And I'm really proud of the creators for doing it anyways.
Absolutely.
The whole point of Quantum Leap has always been to talk about hot social issues.
And this is as hot as you get at this point.
We're in 2012, which is as recent as there's ever been a leap.
It might even be not even just in my lifetime, but conceivably, possibly, even in my daughter's lifetime, depending on what date the actual date is.
It's unlikely.
Yes, probably
December, but
but it's pretty close.
At least it's while after she was conceived, I would guess.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, it's a modern story. And you know what? The original show did focus on modern stories too, except the modern stories then were in the 80s.
Right.
But we got them. And, that's something that we were looking at when we're talking about this show before we knew he was going to jump outside of his lifetime is, wow, this modern history is going to feel really different than the original show's modern history because, we're 30 years further in the future. And the whole trans community and how like this topic has come kind of front and center in our whole culture, and like it is something, it makes perfect sense that they're going there because that's what Quantum Leap has always done. Like, how many episodes of the original series talked with racism or sexism or all of these? It's the same thing. It's the same thing from a different angle.
Absolutely.
And it's no different than anything they've done before when we're touching on racism, sexism, and the other ism, classism.
This is what the original series did, and I'm glad to see that the new series is going to continue along with that. I definitely think there's room to, and we'll get into this more later when we actually, watch the episode, talk about it, but I think there's actually room to just, the argument here, the one that's not bigoted, is that, or the conversation really is someone who was born biologically male and transitions to being female, do they have an advantage if they then go and play for the opposite gender's sports teams?
Which is what the heart of this particular like moment in this character's life is going to be about, is about the sports thing.
I think there's room to go either way with the conversation in a way that is not hateful.
Right.
But there's also going to be that hate.
Like I said, there's already that hate just because they know we're touching on the topic, which I think is totally ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. And haters are going to hate.
Right.
But
I'm looking forward to it, even though I'm a little bit worried about like stepping into something, saying something the wrong way, and then getting flack for it. So yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting to talk about next week for sure. Yeah.
But I think it'll be a good episode. And it kind of reminds me just thematically, I forget what the episode was called, when Sam was in...
Running for Honor?
Yes.
Yes. The episode that tackled gay issues.
Yeah, like it was the Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Right, gays in the military.
Yeah. And, it was kind of similarly thematic, where we're talking about, there were sports involved, and how it's impacting this person's life. And I mean, that was more like based on military, but it reminds me of that thematically, just at the surface. But obviously it's new territory.
Right.
And I mentioned before, like, I'm sure Ian's going to have some great dialogue in this episode.
It's totally a missed opportunity if Ian doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
Like, Ian needs to be front and center in this episode.
Yeah.
He needs to be a huge part of it.
And I'm excited to see what they give Ian. Like, the last time Ian had any comment on the gender topic was, you know, when we learned about how they are conspiracy theorists because they don't believe in facts.
Right.
And that was a huge topic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody either loved that or hated that. That Ian had that moment to say something that wasn't even directly related to gender, only, like, contextually was Ian, that's the reason I have this belief about facts.
Ian filtered that through his own perspective and gave us a different ideology, which I thought was fascinating and interesting.
But this time I think we're going to directly, like, tackle the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to hear about Ian's journey, you know, through their identity.
Yeah, this is a good time
self-identity.
This is a good time to put more character into Ian. Like, finally reveal something about Ian.
And, you know, people are going to be like, oh, it's being thrown in our face.
Mm-hmm.
It has not been yet. They've been saying that from the beginning. It has not been. And yeah, it probably will be in this episode because this is the right place for it. And it fits.
Like, up until this point, the show hasn't really touched on hot topics at all. It hasn't gotten political. It hasn't discussed these issues in any way, shape, or form, really.
Right.
So, now here we are.
It's time for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we would like to hear from you. What did you think of the episode? What did you think of our podcast? Stacie can be reached at...
I can be reached on Twitter at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join my Core Productions Facebook page. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave from Core Productions, signing off.